I think theory is incredibly important in all aspects of work that we do as early childhood professionals, because it opens up new windows to the world, it gives us new tools to think about, it makes us reflect on the tools that we're using to think about, are there other tools that would also be useful to bring to our original set of tools to work together. It helps us to reflect on the limitations of the tools that we might be using, the strengths of the tools that we might be using, and it reminds us that we have to stay open to possibilities rather than closing us down. Theory gives us new words, new ideas to work with, and I don't know, quite honestly, what I would do if I couldn't turn to theory to help.
I spend most of my time reading, and reading other people's ideas really provoke me, because I have to make sense of things, and maybe that's a human trait. We have to pull things together into some sort of coherent mass so that they fit, and that if there's things that don't fit, we worry about them. So I guess in my head, that's what theory is all about. It's the theories we're constantly trying to fit together into some sort of a jigsaw puzzle that helps us make sense of what we're doing. Because we're not comfortable when things are not somehow explained. That doesn't mean we'll ever get there, because we won't. Because what am I, 62 years old, and I'm still trying to figure it out. But I find it endlessly fascinating. I find it endlessly rewarding. And each time somebody challenges me, I go to conferences and I listen to people and I think, how does that work with what I think? But that makes me do some more thinking. And I suppose one of the richest sources of that provocation are the real things that happen to me too, where children, adults, people do things that just kind of don't fit the neat theory. Because let's face it, theories are somewhat neat. There's somebody's idea of how everything fits together, but of course there's always an exception, and when you see that exception, that's your point of departure. That's where you can start thinking a bit more deeply about something. There's a wonderful woman called Helen Barron who talks about disconcertments. I think that's the word she uses. And they're the moments when you see something happening that doesn't fit, and you're disconcerted, and there's no way you can make sense of it, and you're stuck. And there's nothing better than being stuck in terms of giving you a starting point for reflection and analyzing and discussing and probably, dreaming about. I think we all as educators do that. We find ourselves waking up in the middle of the night worrying about something important, because it just doesn't fit and you're trying to make sense of it. Well, that's the way I see it.
Theorists that we've heard about or read about, but in the end, we make up our own minds about our theorists. Who we like, who we don't like, who we disagree with, who we agree with. And I think we take words or ideas or thoughts from different ones. And sometimes we mesh it together and we come up with our own ideas. And I think that's the beauty about having theorists and books and knowledge, that we can learn from each other. And it's really important that we mix and mingle and share, and don't be afraid to do that, to meet people of different cultures, different backgrounds. And I must admit, working in the early childhood field, working with children from all races, all around the world, was a blessing for me, and for me to learn. And we can learn from children. So it's really important that we share our ideas, but have respect for each other.
I can see relationships within and across the theoretical perspectives that practitioners are asked to engage with. from the developmental perspectives that I described before in the way that I was trained, coming up to today where we meet the complexity of post-structural thinking, critical theories, postmodernist ideas that ask us to engage with the complexity, ask us to engage with multiple ways and perspectives of seeing the world, and invite us, in fact challenge us to question our thoughts and our thinking to where we are now. And of course, one of the most painful parts of moving through this is the need to question. And somehow it seems to me to be arising regardless. When I look at the questions around us, our wonderings about what's going on in the world and how do I fit and where am I, it appears to me that we are constantly being asked by the world we're in, how did I come to think what I think? How did I come to know what I know? And how do you think and how do you know? And who's right and who's wrong? And so, of course, I've come to the decision that no one knows, really. There isn't a right or a wrong. And perhaps I say that a little smilingly when I think about academic knowledge and where the knowledge lies. But at the same time, I enjoy and really honour the strivings of research and the strivings of wonderful people internationally and of course nationally to make sense of their own world and the world of others. And I love it and I enjoy it, and I'm always interested to read who's thinking what now and what can I learn and engage with now. But sometimes, of course, it becomes big and complex and one feels a little overwhelmed. And I guess at those times, they're the times we come back into, well, what do I know? And what am I really clear about? And in my worldview, I've come to the view that there are issues around justice, fairness. There are views I have around dignity and reverence for life, and peace and love that I want to come back to all the time. Sometimes I say, I don't want to live in the land of assertions anymore. I want to be in a space where I'm open and to the wondering, to the wonder of how it is to be you. and what does that mean for me? And so I feel excited about that as a capacity that I work with. It's a constant struggle because in my thinking I'm often drawn to make judgments and to be drawn to try to analyse. But I notice that sometimes that prevents me from staying in the wondering space. So I want to put that aside and at times and be able to say, now I'm in an open sense of wondering, and I'm consciously doing that.
There's no one theory, there's no recipe, there's no one approach to curriculum that is going to give us all the answers. What's really important is that educators are open to a range of theories, that they're willing to explore different theories, different approaches to curriculum, and look at what might be appropriate for their context, for their children and families and community. And what happens in reality, I think, is very few people work with just one theory. Most people work with a combination of theories. So they might have a pinch of developmental theory with a handful of sociocultural theory and, maybe half a cup of critical theory. Somebody else might have a whole cup of developmental theory, but complement that with some sociocultural and critical approaches as well. So it's about getting the right combination, the right mix that you're comfortable with and that is appropriate for your context, and to not being stuck on this is the way we've always done it, this is what we do, because what we've always done might work but something else might work better. So it's important to be open to new possibilities, I think.
Post-structuralism is a framework that I really like to use. It challenges the way that I think, and I think that it's important because it can challenge the way that other people think. And theory is such a critical, important part of trying to understand why we do things, how we do things, why we think the way we think, and how that then translates into the practical stuff that we do every day. You can't learn to throw a ball without understanding the correct way of holding your arm. So there is always a theoretical framework in the everyday things that we do. And until we actually move away from thinking that theory is something to be feared, or that it's way too complex to actually understand, or we shut down about that, we can't really fully understand the way that our world operates. And post-structuralism is a really important framework to allow us to look at the contradictions and the very diversity and the difference that actually is existing in the world, the different ways we think about the world and the different ways that we practice in the world, and understanding why we practice in that way.
One of the worries that I have about how people can misuse theory, I think, okay, let me just talk about first why I think theories are really helpful. I think that we need to be able to critically analyse and reflect on ways in which our own thinking has been colonised by all the various messages, and they can be taught messages or they can be just internalised readings that we have taken on the world based on the body languages that we're getting when we do certain things. Okay, so we have been shaped into a set of what's okay and what's not okay, and it's very limiting. So I think we have to actually decolonise our thinking. And we have to decolonise all those messages, which include, for example, as a Pākehā person, as a white person, I have received all my life a whole lot of messages which is embedded very much in who I am about, that I, as a Pākehā person, respond to people who are different in certain ways, and usually quite even almost now reflexively, I will make a racist assumption. And so one of the theoretical tools for me is to look at decolonisation, to look at anti-racism thinking, to try and understand how that coloniser mindset is a part of how I've been shaped, and to work consciously really to try and disembed that and put that to one side, but also to remind myself that as a person, my wairua is part of every person, and we're all, so therefore I don't want to operate from a position of the baggages. I want to operate from a position of being really responsive to that person's heart, from my heart. That is an important place to be coming from. It's about the empathy that I have for myself and who I am in a situation, as well as that enables me to have the connection with others.
And I was just, my thinking was that around theories was that, there are theorists that I love and that I'm passionate about, and quite often those theories are speaking to me because they connect with my thinking, they affirm, and sometimes you have to kind of move to some challenging theories. So you have that kind of love period with theorists, and then you still hold them close, and then you're able to look at another perspective. But coming back to what you're saying, Jen, I found that like in my interconnectedness and my openness, I had a realisation one day, Miriam, that my interconnectedness connects me to everyone, whereas I was kind of staying located in my own Māori world. That my connectedness meant everything that was Māori, but actually the world's everyone's. and it's everyone. So that was quite a powerful shift in my thinking in more recent times, to actually see interconnectedness as all, which was a shift.
So currently the EYLF sets out a very important set of ideas for early childhood educators. I mean, there are a number of theoretical perspectives set out there, but again, I think we have to look across those theories and draw out what is best in terms of our own practice and what fits with our own values and norms. So child development theory has not had a good press in early childhood education for a number of years, and I think the pendulum has swung too far against using some child development knowledge, particularly its current directions.
I think the most memorable experience for me in my early childhood career has been working on and leading with Jennifer Sumption the development of the Early Years Learning Framework, which was done in a very short period of time in 2009, but is now out there around the country. And I think it's the most exciting thing that people are working with this document, and finding the document is something that speaks to them in many different ways. So what we're hearing is that people can start reading the document and in some component of that document see themselves, hear something, read something, and they think that's exactly what I try to do in my centre, or that's exactly what's informing the sort of approach that I'm trying to implement as an educator with young children. Putting theory into the document was really important, and what you will find there is that we've tried to cover the full range of theories. Now you'll see that developmental theories is sort of one line, and I've told you about 2 developmental theories today. There are many, many more. I could speak to you all about temperament and the theory of child temperament, which is another way of thinking about individual differences. Then there's all the learning theories, you know, trying to understand learning. I won't go into them. I won't go into them any more than that. But just to point out that in writing the Early Years Learning Framework, what worked best was drawing on a range of perspectives, a range of theories that people use to inform their work, a range of different ways of practicing, a range of different environments where people were enacting early childhood curriculum. It was really drawing together that huge diversity that we have in Australian early childhood services that made that document what it is today. I think we went out there and heard a lot of different voices and have tried to keep all of those voices in mind in making sure that they are somewhere in that document.
At times, there were times that I was reading Foucault and I thought, I have no idea what he's talking about. And I think that's a common feeling that students and certainly academics and anybody in the field reading theory, that is a common feeling that we all have. So what I would say to you is, and what I would encourage you in, is to persevere and to not give up and to keep reading, because the more you read, both primary and secondary sources, things do start to sink in. And also what I would encourage you to do is to get a group together. I think doing theory in a supportive group is just so fantastic, because you can throw around ideas in a safe environment and really learn and challenge each other. So theory is you know, you're going to be grappling with theory, but it is definitely worth it.
I do draw on a number of theories, but I don't think that that means that any theory is okay and anything goes. But I think that the more interesting thing for me to ask is not so much what I believe about children or art or teaching, but why I believe that. I think the why questions are really interesting. So, you know, why do I believe that art is about freedom and self-expression? Where does that come from? And if you actually want to go and investigate those things, you'll see that it comes at a particular historical time or a particular you know, personal time, or there'll be some reason why that's the belief that you're having. And the exciting thing for me, I think, is when somebody or something makes me think that maybe that's not always the case, and maybe there is another way of seeing this.
Foucault's not my only theorist. I would say Foucault's my main theorist, but what I would encourage educators to do is have a range of theorists to inform your thinking and work, because I think different theory critiques each other, and I think Foucault would actually encourage you to have a range of theorists as well. Again, it's about truths and the power in truths. So theory effectively can be a truth that you need to unpack and critique and look at what assumptions underpin that. So I would say absolutely use Foucault, but absolutely use other theory as well.